1 minute ago, Oprah defends Diddy in court. Judge orders arrest as Kash Patel reveals crime. The courtroom was unusually quiet on the seventh day of the trial, as the defense team and the prosecution prepared for another round of arguments. But no one could have predicted the turn of events when the doors to the federal courtroom opened. Oprah Winfrey, the most powerful woman in television, walked in her calm, composed demeanor, masking the storm she was about to create. She wasn't just a media mogul anymore. Today she was a witness, and no one, not even the defense team, had anticipated her arrival. Her name hadn't appeared on any witness lists. There had been no leaks, no rumors yet. Here she was, stepping forward to defend Diddy, a man already facing serious charges. The room felt electric with the suddenness of her presence. Diddy, seated at the defense table, looked up in shock, his expression unreadable. He whispered something to his lawyer, who merely shrugged, equally unprepared. The judge raised an eyebrow, but gave no objection when the clerk confirmed Oprah's clearance. "Miss Winfrey, you may take the stand," the clerk announced. The tension in the air was palpable. The gallery leaned forward, anticipating what the media giant would say. Oprah approached the witness stand with the confidence that had made her a household name. Clad in a tailored gray suit, glasses perched just so on her nose, she looked every bit the professional. But today her usual role of interviewer was replaced by that of a defender. She was here to testify in favor of Diddy, to argue his innocence in the face of public vilification. Oprah took her oath, speaking slowly and deliberately. As she began, the room fell into silence. "I'm here today because I cannot sit quietly while a man I've known for over 20 years is being portrayed as something I do not recognize." Oprah began, her voice firm but measured. The shockwave of her words rippled through the courtroom. Jurors turned their heads. The prosecution stiffened, their eyes narrowing. Even the defense team was caught off guard by Oprah's sudden stance. The media had painted Diddy as a monster, but Oprah came to offer a different truth, one built on years of personal experience. "I did not come here under subpoena," she continued. "I did not come here to salvage a friendship. I came here because I believe what is happening is a case of misinterpretation, a tragic public unraveling built on half-truths, whispers, and momentum." Oprah's statement hit like a thunderclap. The courtroom, which had been buzzing with whispers, now fell into an uneasy quiet. She wasn't there to soften the accusations or plead for mercy. She was there to challenge the entire prosecution. Every word she spoke had purpose, her voice steady, but her intent undeniable. This wasn't about Diddy's innocence alone. It was about something much bigger, the rush to judgment in the court of public opinion. "I have known Mr. Combs in both public and private life." Oprah continued, her gaze sweeping across the room, her tone unwavering. "And the Shah I know is not the man described in these testimonies." For a moment the courtroom was suspended in tension. The prosecution, visibly perturbed, exchanged glances. They weren't prepared for this. Oprah wasn't just defending Diddy's character, she was poking holes in the entire case. She spoke of the charity events, the long hours of mentoring young artists, the private dinners where Diddy showed vulnerability. This wasn't the Diddy the media had portrayed, but a man trying to make a difference in the world. The defense team, though, somewhat taken aback, began to see an opportunity. Oprah was more than just a witness. She was an ally, a voice with immense influence. Her words carried weight, and they were ready to make the most of it. But the prosecution wasn't ready to back down either. They knew that Oprah's words, though powerful, could be just another manipulation in the media frenzy. So they asked the tough questions, challenging Oprah's recollections and suggesting that her emotional connection to Diddy was clouding her judgment. The courtroom grew tense as Oprah replied with grace but firm conviction. "I have hosted survivors. I've walked beside them," Oprah said. "I know their stories. And I also know when stories don't align with the man I've seen up close." She leaned forward slightly, making eye contact with the jury. "What I'm asking this court to do is not ignore pain, but to separate it from presumption." Then came a line that would spark a firestorm outside the courtroom. "We are building a monster in real time," Oprah said, her voice clear, ringing in the ears of everyone present. "And I'm here to say, be very careful, because once we turn a man into a monster, it becomes very hard to ever see him as human again." Oprah's bold statement immediately caught fire across social media. Twitter, Facebook, and news outlets exploded with reactions both in support and in outrage. Some hailed Oprah as a champion of justice, a voice of reason in a sea of sensationalism. Others condemned her for defending someone they believed to be guilty of the very crimes he was accused of. The tension in the room was palpable as Oprah continued unfazed. She was calm, collected, and prepared to tear apart the prosecution's case. Instead of offering generalized defense, Oprah came armed with a binder of notes. She was prepared to challenge every key detail the prosecution had presented so far. She started with the 2010 Las Vegas incident, a key piece of evidence in the case. Oprah, having been present during that time, offered a completely different account of the events, casting doubt on the testimonies that had been presented. Important context was left out, Oprah said, as she referenced the celebrations and business deals that had been going on at the time. There was no coercion, no drugging. There were contracts being signed and people were drinking, but no one was forced. The events described here are being painted in a way that doesn't tell the full story. With every page she turned, Oprah continued to offer evidence that contradicted the allegations against Diddy. Each new revelation hit the courtroom like a bombshell, and the prosecution was left struggling to recover. But just as Oprah's testimony was gaining traction, a shift occurred in the courtroom. Kash Patel, known for his unflinching commitment to justice, stood up. His eyes narrowed as he observed Oprah's testimony. He was ready to challenge the narrative she was so carefully weaving. The air thickened. The real confrontation was about to begin. The courtroom was tense with every eye fixed on Oprah Winfrey as she continued to defend Diddy. Her calm, authoritative voice filled the room, but now there was a palpable shift in the air. The stakes had just been raised. Kash Patel, ever the staunch defender of justice, stood up. His expression was resolute and his eyes locked with Oprah's. He had seen countless cases in his career, but something about this one stirred a deep sense of responsibility in him. He wasn't just going to sit back and allow a powerful media figure to manipulate the narrative. He was here to uphold the truth. "Ms. Winfrey," Patel began, his voice calm but firm, "I appreciate your testimony, but I must point out something crucial. The law isn't about sentiment, it's about evidence and facts." The entire room shifted, the tension palpable. Oprah's eyes met his, a challenge in her gaze. She wasn't one to back down easily, especially not in a room full of legal minds. "I understand, Mr. Patel," she replied evenly, "but there is more to justice than just facts. There's context, there's understanding. And what you're missing here is that Sean Combs is a man with a history, with intentions that are far more than what these allegations claim." Patel didn't flinch. "I disagree," he said, his voice cutting through the room. "You are not here to offer context, Ms. Winfrey. You are here to protect a narrative that has been carefully crafted, one based on feelings and perceptions, not the facts at hand. You are using your platform to cloud the truth. You have used your influence to sway public opinion, and now you're trying to sway this court. And that's where I draw the line." There was a collective gasp from the gallery. Some jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others leaned forward, captivated by the growing tension between these two powerful figures. Oprah's face remained composed, but her jaw tightened. She wasn't used to being called out like this, especially in a courtroom. But she wasn't going to back down now. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Mr. Patel?" Oprah asked, her voice still steady, though there was an edge to it now. "Because I'm here, because I believe in the truth. I'm here because I've known this man for over 20 years. I've seen his character. I know what he's capable of, and I'm not going to sit here and let the world paint him as a monster without challenge." Patel leaned forward. "What you're doing here is dangerous. You're defending him based on your personal experiences. not the evidence presented in this court. You're undermining the very legal system that's supposed to protect the truth. You're helping to create a monster, but not the one you think. You're creating a narrative that's so powerful it overrides any chance of a fair trial. The prosecution looked on, unsure of how to intervene. They had planned their case meticulously, but this sudden clash between two media titans was completely unexpected. Oprah's defense was already powerful enough on its own, but now with Patel challenging her so directly, the entire dynamic of the trial had shifted. The judge, who had remained silent through the exchange, cleared his throat and raised his gavel. Mr. Patel, I remind you that this court is not a place for personal vendettas or public battles. Your responsibility here is to the law, not to your own opinions of Ms. Winfrey's influence. Patel nodded his gaze, unwavering. I understand, Your Honor. But the truth is, Ms. Winfrey's influence has far exceeded the boundaries of this courtroom. Her words have shaped public opinion in a way that has created a narrative of guilt without evidence. Oprah's face flickered with irritation, but she quickly masked it. I'm not shaping a narrative, Mr. Patel. I'm stating facts. My testimony isn't just based on friendship. It's based on years of observation. If you want to discredit me, fine. But I won't stand here and let you undermine my integrity. Patel wasn't backing down. I'm not here to discredit you, Oprah, he said, his voice growing colder. I'm here to remind this court of the legal responsibility we have to separate emotion from law. We cannot allow this trial to become a spectacle where media figures manipulate the story and truth gets lost in the noise. Oprah's gaze hardened. And I'm here to ensure that truth isn't silenced by the media frenzy. I'm here to tell this court that what's happening here goes beyond legal proceedings. This is about a man being destroyed by public opinion. It's about a system that rushes to judgment before a verdict is even reached. Before Patel could respond, the judge intervened again. Enough, he said, his voice firm but not unkind. This is a courtroom, not a media platform. We will return to the facts of the case. Mr. Patel, please stick to the evidence. Patel nodded, but his words weren't finished. With all due respect, Your Honor, the evidence here is clear. Ms. Winfrey may have her own perspective, but that doesn't change the facts. And the facts are that this trial isn't about how much we feel for the defendant. It's about whether he's guilty of the charges against him. The judge gave a slight nod, signaling that Patel could proceed. But as he prepared to continue, Oprah didn't let the moment slip by. You're right, Mr. Patel, Oprah said with a measured smile. But remember, the truth isn't always as simple as the facts laid out in front of us. Sometimes the real truth is about understanding the people behind the headlines. Patel's response was sharp and precise. The real truth is that justice is about facts, not feelings. And if we allow emotions to dictate the course of this trial, we risk turning the pursuit of justice into just another show. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension. The clash between Oprah and Patel wasn't just ideological, it was a battle for control of the narrative in a case that had already captivated the nation. Every word exchanged between them felt like it carried weight beyond the courtroom walls. But as the argument simmered down, one thing was clear. Oprah Winfrey's defense of Diddy was no longer just about protecting him. It had become a battleground for the very principles of justice. And Kash Patel wasn't about to let that go uncontested. The next phase of the trial was about to get even more complicated. As Patel prepared to present the evidence, he knew the stakes were higher than ever, not just for Diddy but for the entire legal system. Oprah had sparked a firestorm, and now it was up to Patel to extinguish it with cold, hard facts. The tension in the courtroom continued to build as Kash Patel stood ready to shift the momentum of the trial. Oprah Winfrey had done her best to paint Diddy as the victim of a media-driven witch hunt, but Patel wasn't about to let the narrative go uncontested. This was more than a defense of one man, it was a fight to protect the integrity of the legal process itself. Patel reached into his folder, pulling out a series of documents and photographs. He laid them on the table in front of him, each one carefully organized. The case being presented here, Your Honor, is based on emotion, not facts. It's not about what the law says, it's about what people believe they know from the media. Oprah's face hardened as she listened to Patel's calm, authoritative voice. She had expected him to challenge her, but the coldness of his delivery caught her off guard. He wasn't just attacking her defense of Diddy, he was attacking the entire media-driven culture that had allowed these accusations to take on a life of their own. Patel took a moment before continuing, his voice steady. I'm not here to discredit Ms. Winfrey or her relationship with Mr. Combs, but I'm here to present the facts that have been overlooked, the facts that the media has ignored, in favor of sensationalism. The judge nodded, signaling Patel to proceed. Oprah's defense had been based on the narrative she had crafted, but now Patel was going to dissect it, piece by piece. Let's start with the 2010 Las Vegas incident, Patel said, flipping open the first page of his binder. He placed the photograph of the Las Vegas hotel suite on the stand for the jury to see. Ms. Winfrey mentioned that she was present that night, but let's be clear. What she didn't mention was the fact that there were multiple people in that room, people who have since come forward with a very different account of events. The prosecution stirred, but Patel wasn't looking at them. He was focused on Oprah, who now sat in her chair, poised and listening carefully. He had already said what needed to be said, but now it was time to delve deeper. These people, Patel continued, testified under oath that what happened that night was nothing like what has been portrayed. There was no force, no coercion. There was no criminality. Just a group of people, some of them working, some of them celebrating a business deal, caught up in a moment. No drugs, no threats, just adults acting like adults. Oprah clenched her jaw but held her ground. The courtroom was on edge, waiting for her response. But Patel was already moving forward. Then there's the issue of Cassie Ventura's claims, Patel said, his voice hardening. Ms. Ventura has every right to speak her truth, but there are facts that contradict the narrative she's pushing. I've reviewed the tapes, the conversations, and I've spoken to individuals who were there. In 2015, Cassie told Oprah something very different from what she's now claiming. She wasn't scared. She wasn't threatened. She was frustrated with her career, her contract, and her place in the entertainment industry, the gallery murmured. Some of the jurors exchanged looks. Oprah's face had drained of color, but she didn't interrupt. She had expected a fight, but Patel's precision was unsettling. Patel leaned forward slightly. In a phone call with Oprah, Cassie admitted that she felt trapped by the demands of the industry, not the actions of Mr. Combs. She said, and I quote, "I feel boxed in, but that's just how it is in this business." The words hung in the air, leaving an uncomfortable silence in their wake. Oprah shifted in her seat, but she didn't speak. The courtroom was absorbing every word, every nuance of Patel's attack. He wasn't just defending Diddy, he was revealing the inconsistencies in the testimonies and forcing the court to take a hard look at the true nature of these accusations. Patel turned the page in his binder. Let's address the rumors surrounding the so-called freak-off parties, he said, his voice now cutting through the air. Ms. Winfrey has claimed these events were part of a dark, sordid narrative. But I've been to these events. I've seen the galas, the fundraisers, and yes, the parties, but I've never seen what the media has suggested. These events were no different from any other Hollywood fundraiser. They were about networking, about giving back, and about bringing people together. Oprah's eyes narrowed. She could feel the walls closing in. That's not what people are saying, she retorted, her voice calm, but her fingers gripping the edge of the witness stand. Patel ignored her attempt to redirect. The media has built a false narrative. These stories don't come from truth. They come from speculation and exaggeration. And now you're allowing this court to entertain those very stories. You're playing into a media narrative that treats speculation as fact, and the results are dangerous. Oprah's face flushed. She had been a media mogul for years, but now Patel was accusing her of feeding into a media frenzy she had often been accused of manipulating. She opened her mouth to respond, but Patel cut her off. I'm not here to pretend that Diddy is perfect, Patel said, his tone lowering but gaining strength. He's flawed, he has an ego, but he is not a monster. He is not guilty of the crimes he's been accused of, and I will not allow this trial to become another piece of sensationalized tabloid fodder." Oprah clenched her fists, but the reality of Patel's argument was sinking in. This was no longer about defending a friend, it was about whether the media and public opinion could be allowed to dictate justice. Oprah had underestimated Patel's resolve, and now her own credibility was under attack. "Ms. Winfrey," Patel said, his voice growing firmer, "you've built an empire on telling stories, but sometimes the stories you tell aren't the whole truth, and it's time for this court to hear the facts, all the facts." The courtroom sat in stunned silence. The moment was charged, and everyone present knew this was the turning point in the trial. The defense had been waiting for their opportunity, and now Kash Patel had made his move. Oprah's face was hard, her eyes unwavering, but deep down she knew the battle was far from over. Patel had just opened a door, and the truth, for better or worse, was about to come spilling through. Oprah sat in stunned silence as Patel continued to expose the cracks in the prosecution's case. The courtroom, which had been tense from the start, was now electric with anticipation. Every word Patel spoke carried weight, and it was clear that this wasn't just a trial for Diddy, it was a battle for the very principles of justice itself. Patel's voice grew louder, more determined. "We can't let this trial be dictated by the noise outside these walls. The media circus, the social media hashtags, the internet memes, they all have a stake in this. But we are not here to serve the narrative that's already been created. We are here to serve the truth, the facts." The gallery was still hanging on every word. Even Oprah's usual composure had slipped slightly. Her fingers trembled on the witness stand, betraying her calm demeanor. Patel's gaze never wavered. "You've made a powerful case for how you've known Mr. Combs, how you've seen his heart and his actions. But the reality is that we are here because a man is being accused of crimes that cannot be substantiated by the facts. We've seen the testimonies, but where is the hard evidence? Where is the proof of these so-called underground bunkers or human trafficking rings? They are fabrications." Oprah's chest tightened as the weight of Patel's words settled in. She had spent years navigating Hollywood's spotlight, shaping narratives and defending her truth, but now she was in a courtroom where every claim was under scrutiny. And Patel wasn't letting her off easy. "I'm not here to dismiss the pain or the experiences of anyone involved," Patel continued, "but I am here to remind this court that pain and trauma do not equate to guilt. We must separate the emotions from the facts." There was a long pause, and Oprah glanced at the judge, hoping for some sort of intervention. But the judge remained silent, allowing Patel to continue his attack. "This is not about revenge," Patel said, his voice resolute. "It's not about making someone pay for their mistakes based on public opinion. It's about applying the law without bias, without distortion. Mr. Combs deserves a fair trial, one based on facts, not on the stories we've heard outside this courtroom." The room was dead silent now, the tension suffocating. Patel's words had created a shift in the atmosphere, leaving everyone in the room to consider the uncomfortable truth he had laid bare. Oprah's expression softened the weight of her defense, crumbling under the pressure of his logic. The fight for justice was far from over, but Patel had made one thing clear. In this trial, facts would prevail over fiction. The truth would out, no matter how hard some tried to bury it. The courtroom had reached a pivotal moment. Oprah Winfrey, once the voice of reason and defense for Diddy, now found herself on the back foot. The atmosphere was thick with tension as Kash Patel stood his ground, laying bare the inconsistencies in the case that had been constructed against Diddy. Oprah, usually so composed under pressure, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. For the first time in the trial, she seemed uncertain. The defense had been solid up until Patel's intervention, but now she was grappling with something much more profound than just a battle for her friend's innocence. She was facing an undeniable challenge to her own credibility. Patel wasn't backing down. His voice rang out across the courtroom, crisp and unwavering. You've turned this trial into a spectacle, Ms. Winfrey. You've allowed media manipulation to cloud the facts and distort the truth. The power of your platform has given you the ability to influence millions, but today, you cannot sway this court with emotions and hearsay. The law must be our guide, not the court of public opinion. Oprah's face had lost its usual calm, replaced with a strained composure. The words were hitting harder than she had anticipated. She had built an empire on shaping narratives, but now, in the most public of settings, Patel was unraveling the very fabric of the defense she had woven. There are no secret bunkers, Patel continued, his voice ringing with finality. No tunnels beneath Diddy's properties. No dark, nefarious world that's been spun by the media. What we're left with are the facts, and the facts don't align with the accusations against him. The room was dead silent. Even the prosecution was now listening with rapt attention, sensing that the balance was tipping in favor of the defense. The weight of Patel's words hung heavily in the air, and Oprah's attempts to counter were losing steam. Ms. Winfrey, Patel added, looking directly at her with a sharp gaze, you may have seen a side of Diddy that others haven't, but that does not make your experience the ultimate truth. The law demands more than personal experience. It demands evidence. Oprah opened her mouth, but no words came out. It was as if Patel had cut off the air, leaving her struggling to find a response. The gavel of the judge echoed through the silence. The judge, sensing that the trial was entering uncharted waters, raised his voice. Mr. Patel is correct. This court will proceed based on the evidence, not on media manipulation or personal anecdotes. Patel's eyes never left Oprah. Exactly, Your Honor. This trial must be about justice, not about who can shout the loudest or manipulate the most hearts. Mr. Combs deserves a fair trial, one rooted in the facts we can prove. The judge nodded, signaling the shift in the room. The tide had turned. Oprah had been unable to maintain the same commanding presence she once had. Now the defense had taken control. Oprah's defense, once powerful, now appeared fragmented. Her empire of influence, built on trust and personal experience, was no match for Patel's steady, unwavering commitment to the truth. The jury, having absorbed the exchange, appeared to be on the verge of reaching their own conclusion. The weight of the trial was no longer just about Diddy, it was about the broader question of justice in the age of media influence. Could the media's power to shape public opinion be allowed to dictate the outcomes of such high-stakes legal proceedings? As the trial continued, the question remained, could Oprah Winfrey recover from the revelations Patel had exposed? And could Diddy survive the storm that was threatening to consume him? The courtroom was silent as the weight of the trial bore down on everyone. Oprah Winfrey, once the indomitable figure defending Diddy, sat in defeat. Her defense had crumbled under the relentless logic of Kash Patel, who had meticulously peeled back the layers of the prosecution's case. The air was thick with anticipation as the trial neared its final moments. Patel stood tall, his final remarks cutting through the stillness. We are here to find the truth, not to cater to the loudest voices or the most powerful platforms. Diddy, like every other American, deserves a fair trial, a trial based on the facts and not media-fueled hysteria. Oprah's gaze met Patel's, but there was no anger, only resignation. She knew the game was over. Diddy's fate was no longer in her hands. It had shifted, and the courtroom had witnessed the fall of a carefully crafted narrative. The judge slammed his gavel. This trial will proceed with the facts, not the fiction. We will deliberate based on the law. And with that, the courtroom was left to ponder not just Diddy's fate, but the future of justice in an age where media and power often collide.